What's up, guys? It's Heretic here. Welcome back. One more deck here to close out the week before we get into the Georgia Regional Championships this weekend. So, best of luck to everyone participating in that here or in any League Cups or other tournaments. Today we are looking at the Xerneas Pancakes deck, which Josh Squeaky Marking from Team Fish Knuckles, along with Kevin Baxter and a handful of other players, played at the Regional Championship over New Year's weekend in Dallas. Also saw K-Bax and a couple other guys playing this list. I think Lenny Presock played it. Not this exact list, but a similar one at the League Cup that I claimed first place at just this past weekend. So go me, I guess. Had a few things break my way for sure. But in any case, we're going to go ahead and look at this deck based around Xerneas Break, which is a card that had a couple of deck ideas based around it when it came out in Steam Siege and then just kind of fizzled out. Lifestream for 2 Fairy Energy does 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to all of your Pokemon. Essentially, this is Huntail's powerful Storm attack, but it costs an extra energy to use. Which, why would you use something like this then? Well, a couple reasons why you would use this over Huntail. Number one, because of its typing. As a Fairy type, it has access to Fairy Drop for healing, and also has a resistance to Dark types on the regular Xerneas, which it maintains when it Break Evolves. And that's pretty good given that Yveltal and Darkrai are both powerful players in the current standard meta. And then secondly, Xerneas also has an energy accelerating attack called Geomancy, which you guys have no doubt seen before, for 1 Fairy Energy, allowing you to choose 2 of your bench Pokemon. And then for each of those Pokemon, you get to pull a Fairy Energy from your deck and attach it to that Pokemon. And then you also have Rainbow Spear, which is 100 for 3, discarding 1 energy attached to Xerneas. You won't use that too often. Most of the time, you're just going to try to flood your board with Fairy and double colorless energy, and then use Xerneas Break's Lifestream to deal a whole lot of damage. And then you have cards like Experience Share that will keep energy on the board if Xerneas is to get knocked out. So we run a 4-3 Xerneas Break line, and then we have 2 Lugia-EX, another card that just does more damage with more energy on your board. Arrow Ball, just like the old Mewtwo's X-Ball attack, 2 colorless, 20 damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. And then for 4 colorless, Deep Hurricane does 80, plus if there is a Stadium card in play, you add 70 more damage and then discard the Stadium. So it's got a nice little gimmick going for it there. So 2 of those, and then the big boy in the room, 1 copy of Snorlax-GX. Oh, someone just offered us a trade. We'll look at it in a bit. 1 copy of Snorlax-GX, 190 HP, some very expensive attacks. And we run Ninja Boy to bring this guy out. Collapse for 3 energy, 80 damage, and Snorlax falls asleep. Thunderous Snore, an attack you probably won't get to use very often, but 5 colorless for 180 damage. And then Snorlax, this attack can only be used if Snorlax is asleep. And then it wakes up, Pulverizing Pancake, the GX attack for 5 colorless as well, 210 damage. And then much like Collapse, Snorlax falls asleep. So, of course, you can only use 1 GX attack per game, but that Pulverizing Pancake, 210, make it worth it. It's a pretty big attack. I know some lists have opted to run a single copy of Fighting Fury Belt to boost that number to 220, which would knock out stuff like Mega Rayquaza and Mega Scizor in 1 hit. Definitely not a bad idea. Mega Scizor all around is just a bad matchup for this, I feel like. But nonetheless, 1 Snorlax, 2 Lugias, 4-3 Xerneas line, and then we have 2 Shaymins, 1 Regirock with the Omega Barrier Ancient Trait, same as Primal Groudon's Ancient Trait. This is just, you throw an EXP share on this guy on the bench, and he sucks up energy. He can't be Lysandered, energy can't be hammered off of him. So he just kind of sits there and makes Xerneas' attack stronger, and then eventually he's usually what you want to Ninja Boy into Snorlax-GX in the late game. Finally, we have 1 copy of the new promo Giratina. This is for our rather atrocious Greninja matchup. So, Devour Light, Giratina's ability, takes the abilities away from every Pokemon Break, including abilities of that Break Evolution's previous evolution, or previous form. So this is really for Greninja, and it could also be useful against a Rogue Yanmega Break deck if you were to see that. But I think Garbodor kind of keeps those non-existent right now. So that is our Pokemon lineup. We're going to go ahead and get into our items. We have 1 escape rope just for switching out since we don't run Fairy Garden. 1 super rod to put energy and necessary Pokemon back in the deck. And then 2 fairy drops for healing capabilities. Like I said, against dark decks or against anything else, if you can turn a 2-hit knockout into a 3-hit knockout, much like we did with Mega Altaria earlier this week, by all means do it. And then we have 4 VerseSeeker, 4 Ultra Ball, and 3 Trainer's Mail to round out our items. Supporters, 4 Sycamores, 2 Ents, 2 Lysanders, again, just like the every deck. 1 Delinquent, just a card I like having around in most decks in general, especially when we have Parallel City involved. And then 1 Ninja Boy for late game Snorlax shenanigans. It can be a pretty fun thing to do. Ninja Boy out a Regirock loaded with energy for Snorlax or Lugia, and then just wallop them for a crap ton and win the game, usually for the game-ending prize. Our last supporter is Olympia, which again, just a card I think is really good since we're not always going to have Floatstone on everything, and just another option for switching out that can be used in conjunction with VerseSeeker. Only using 1 slot because it is a supporter, but still being able to, or only using 1 slot, but because it's a supporter, still being able to use multiple times with VerseSeeker. Our stadiums, I know a lot of these lists have been running just 4 Silent Labs. Since we're trying to run the Giratina, I opted for 2 Labs and 2 Parallel Cities. The Silent Lab is still there for the Volcanion matchup, which is mainly where you're going to want it. And then the Parallel City is there for lots of matchups like Yveltal, where you can just slow them down early with either one of these 2 stadiums. And then also because it's not shutting down your Giratina in the Greninja matchup, since they probably run Silent Lab mostly now as well. Pokemon tools, we got 2 EXP shares and 3 Floatstones. Just more ways to get back to the bench, and then of course having EXP shares to keep our energy in play. You could probably flip to 3 shares and 2 floats if you wanted to. And then we have 4 double colorless energy and 7 basic fairy energy to round everything out. No max elixirs, don't really see the necessity for them. You'd have to kind of tailor your build to run at least 2 more fairy energies then, and then you'd have to make room for 4 max elixirs on top of that. So, anyway, this is what we're looking at, and we are going to go ahead and take it for a spin. Okay, so it looks like we're starting out against Yveltal deck. We see the shiny Yveltal box, we see the types to go with it, Dark Psychic, Colorless, so looks about right. So we're going to go ahead. We win the coin toss. We'll go first and try to get some energy on our board right away. Oh! Alright. Well, we start with... Well, thankfully we have an N. When you open with this many energy, yeah, I think that's pretty much the only supporter you want to see. We do get stuck opening with a Snorlax, which really does suck. Not going to lie. Maybe we can find the Ninja Boy and get this thing out of the active. Or a Floatstone or something. I guess we'll see how this unfolds. Alright. Well, he's finally got his stuff out. Okay, so we see a Trubbish there. Yeah, that's fine. We're going to go ahead. We'll attach 1, and then we're just going to play an N. Get all the rest of that back into the deck where we want it. Alright, so we do hit a couple of Floatstones. We find Giratina, which I guess right now isn't really that big of a deal. I'm going to go ahead and throw a Floatstone onto Snorlax there. And we can maybe knock out the Trubbish on our next turn, although really don't know how relevant that is. We do see he puts a Floatstone down. And we're going to see an Ultra Ball here. Alright, so another Trubbish, an Olympia. And he probably could realize that in this matchup he really doesn't need the Garbodor. And the only thing it really does is makes Fright Knight more versatile, able to use a Floatstone. But Fright Knight doesn't do much here anyway, except for against Lugia. So we're going to see him grab a Yveltal EX instead. He's going to throw an energy on there. And we got to start to be careful about how much energy we throw on this guy now. He does play a Parallel City down as well, so it's going to limit us to 3 benched Pokemon. Now, we don't need this Giratina at the moment. We could hit his Yveltal for 80, which isn't terrible. I mean, even if he threw a double colorless, he could hit us for 140, but that's all he would get. So we could just try to charge this thing and go the distance with it. We do find an Ultra Ball there off of the Trainer's Mail, so we can play that, throw these two out, and go get a Xerneas. Then I think we can just kind of sit on this here. And so we're going to collapse here for 80 damage. And then if we fail to wake up, we can actually use the Thunderous Snore attack, assuming we can hit a double colorless next turn. And otherwise we could use... Oh my god, okay, maybe not. He just played an Enhanced Hammer. Alright, so his Evil Ball does a lot less damage because of that. We do fail to wake up, so of course the one scenario we would have been able to use the Thunderous Snore is just completely taken from us. So we're going to Fairy Drop Snorlax here, get 50 damage off of it, and then we'll Sycamore for a fresh 7. We do notice he has no cards left in hand. So we do have an option to work with there. We can go ahead and put Xerneas Break into play here. And I think we'll hold the second Fairy Drop, try to get the most out of it here when he hits us again for 20, 40, 60, 80 damage, it looks like. 90, okay, because he's got a Fighting Fury Belt. So 90 damage goes down onto Snorlax. And, alright, so we find an EXP share, which can go on Regirock. We can Fairy Drop again. And we've got a couple of Trainer Mails here we can use. So let's see what do we have in the discard pile. Just Giratina, so no reason to grab that. I don't really think the escape rope's going to help us here much, so I think we just fail this one. Go ahead and try again. We do find an Ultra Ball this time, so we can get another Xerneas out of the deck. Throw Lugia and one of these Verse Seekers out. Go pull a second Xerneas from the deck, and then we can Versus Seeker into a Sycamore here. And that'll give us a fresh hand of 7. We do find the Fairy Energy, so we can free retreat the Snorlax, bring Xerneas out, and then we can Geomancy here. Search a couple energies out of the deck. So one on our Xerneas Break and one on Snorlax. And then if we can do that one more time, then we can maybe make something happen with Xerneas Break the following turn. We do have that double colorless in our hand as well. So he top decks an N, so he's able to get himself a fresh hand. We lose that double colorless we were sitting on. But otherwise we don't lose a whole lot. He does get a slightly more powerful Evil Ball off here now for 90 damage. So let's see, he's got 80 on him, he's got 130. We could do 1, 2, 3, 4. We could do 100 damage. So I think instead we're gonna, let's see. We're going to go ahead and attach here, and we could also try to knock that out of play. I don't really think that's too huge of a deal here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It could start to be a lot. Let me see. I'm trying to think if we delinquent here, do we have enough resources to start Ultra Balling then? I mean, I suppose we do. Go ahead and knock the Parallel City out of play. Force him to get rid of 3 of his cards. Ideally not, you know, not the most ideal delinquent since we're not draining his hand completely, but it looks like we do force him to give up a Sycamore and a Floatstone, which is good. So we can kind of take from here then and just make this play. And go find another regular Xerneas, or we could go find a Shaman here, I guess wouldn't be bad, but I'm going to go ahead and just stick with the Xerneas. And then we're going to Geomancy again, so we can get a couple more energy onto our board. Alright, so it looks like we're only going to get 1, because we only got 1 left, so Regirock right now won't get an energy, but assuming Xerneas gets KO'd here, the 1 energy it has will just stick to the board. It'll move itself over to Regirock. And then we should be able to get a knockout on the following turn. So he's going to Verse Seeker here. He's going to grab that Professor Sycamore back and play it. He's got 4 energy on the Yveltal EX, but I don't really see what else he can do with it here. We do see he grabs Lysander off T-Mail, but since he's already Sycamore, we don't have to worry about that getting dragged out. So I guess the biggest thing here would be a Y Cyclone. He could move one of his darkness energies back to the new Yveltal EX. We do see a Ultra Ball here, so presumably for a Shaman. Seems like the play. Let's see, do we have another EX? We do have another EXP share still. Okay. Alright, so he grabs a Fright Knight here instead. Kind of an interesting decision. I guess he could try to shut down our... Okay, he has Shaman in hand already. He could try to shut down the EXP share and the Float Stone that way. Doesn't really have any Pokemon EX to work with as far as sniping goes, though. So I think if the biggest problem we have there is Fright Knight, that's okay. We do run Silent Lab. Of course, he just solved that problem for us by putting Garbodor into play. So I guess that works too. And we'll probably, I would assume, see a Y Cyclone here. One other thing we have not seen yet from him is a Max Elixir. We yet to see a single one of those. Alright, and so instead he just Evil Balls. Interesting that he didn't Y Cyclone one of those darkness energies back to the other Yveltal EX. We will go ahead and preserve that energy onto Regirock. We'll bring Snorlax up temporarily. And we find a double colorless, so that's a very welcome sight. We can actually just go ahead and lay that down and hold for a turn then. And then Xerneas Break is going to life stream here for a knockout. Get 160 damage out of it. Claim a couple of prize cards here. And because he didn't Y Cyclone, that's going to put us in a pretty nice spot, as only a Max Elixir will allow him to attack now on this next turn. And maybe we can get lucky and pull some Ninja Boy shenanigans still with the Snorlax. Maybe. Not sure yet. We should have another Lugia, whether it's in the prizes or still in the deck. We do see an Ultra Ball. He did attach a Darkness Energy as well to the Yveltal EX. And we'll see what he searches for here. Looks like another Yveltal EX is going to come out. So that's fine. And this list is remarkably similar to the one I played over the weekend. Could have been card for card what I'm looking at right now. Well, we may never know, but it looks pretty darn close. Let's see if he ever decides to bench this Yveltal or what's going on here. Alright, so that Yveltal, that second Yveltal EX does come down onto the bench. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 energies right now. So one more energy and we would be one-shotting at least before the addition of a Fighting Fury Belt. Because we would be getting up to 180. So he Verse Seekers here for a Sycamore, plays it, discards an N and another Verse Seeker. And he's got 5 Darkness Energies in his discard. Holy cow. Alright, so we do see a successful Max Elixir here. He gets an energy onto the Yveltal EX, so it has 2 energy now. Parallel Cities himself gets rid of his Shaman. That seems pretty solid. And we're going to see a Trainer's Mail here. And grabs another Max Elixir, so he'll be able to try to put some energy on the other Yveltal here now. Maybe start going for a Y Cyclone play. Instead, he stacks it all on one Yveltal, though. Interesting. So we draw Olympia, which isn't really going to do much for us right now. So we can attach another energy here. And I don't even know if I want to attach that Float Stone, to be completely honest. I think we can just actually go ahead and Sycamore here. Alright, so we find Ninja Boy, we find Escape Rope. Alright, so got some stuff for next turn here mainly. We're going to go ahead and Life Stream. We can Ultra Ball for a Xerneas Break if we need to. Go ahead and grab a prize card there. And we do get the Lysander. Not sure how much that's going to come into play right now, but maybe down the stretch. And we do see a double colorless added, so he's got 5, 6, 7 energies he's working with. There's 140 plus base 20. He's doing 160, so he's actually 10 short. So a Fighting Fury Belt would get him the knockout here. He would KO the Xerneas break for a measly 1 prize, unfortunately. But it would still come through as a pretty solid KO, I feel like. Alright, and we do see a Verse Seeker here. He grabs Lysander, so he could just bring up the Snorlax, which is what's going to happen. So he's going to get a 2 prize knockout here instead, which seems pretty good. And we are going to go ahead and move one of those energies back to Regirock. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He does not have a Fighting Fury Belt, so we can knock him out. So we're going to go ahead and Super Rod here. We're going to put the Snorlax back, the energy, and the Xerneas break. Then we can go ahead and Ultra Ball and discard Silent Lab and Lysander, I guess, since it's not really too big of a deal. Grab another Xerneas break out of the deck. Go ahead and throw that into play. And then we can throw another double colorless on this Regirock here and Life Stream again for a whole bunch. And that'll get us down to 1 prize card right there. We do find another Lysander and a Lugia, and so now we're just 1 attack and we win the game. And even if he knocks out one of the Xerneas off a Max Elixir or something, it doesn't really matter. We've got this thing locked up and in the bag. Don't even need a Ninja Boy here, so I think he realizes that, so he just goes ahead and forfeits the game. So Xerneas break alone carries the load, as we are able to come through. We don't need to pancake him in the end there, although we definitely would have had the option. So that actually ends up playing out pretty well. So we take game 1, and we will go ahead and play another. Okay, so we're seeing basic Mega Evolution deck types here. So we're looking at either a Mewtwo, a Scizor, or a Rayquaza, probably. Outside shot that's Gardevoir, but I really don't think so. Alright, so we draw a less than optimal hand here. We have no draw power. We do have the energy to go with Xerneas, but not a whole lot else we can do with it. Okay, so, and it is a Scizor, of course. That's the worst matchup of the batch for us. Discards our double colorless energies. Hits our Xerneas for weakness. Yeah, this is like the one matchup you don't want to see. This is just bad, bad, bad. So he puts another Scizor down. He does have a shield energy on there as well, just to add insult to injury. And we see an Ultra Ball with a Float Stone and an Escape Rope, so we'll see if he goes for like a Hoopa here or something. Alright, so he grabs a Trubbish instead, which, that's fine. I don't really care about that. And then there's a Shaman for 5. Jeez. Okay, so he gets another Scizor down here. Not really a whole lot we can do in this scenario. Oh my goodness, this is gross. And he plays an N, so he is going to end us out of this terrible hand we're sitting on. So he does us a favor there. Not really sure how much that's going to help us. We do find some supporters this time. We also find Pancakes. So I don't know, maybe we can start to get some energy on that. Of course, without having access to a Fighting Fury Belt, if he Mega Evolves, we're still not one-shotting him. That sucks. Okay, so we'll draw. We find a Trainer's Mail, which we can go ahead and use. And nope, no thank you. We're going to play one of these Sycamores already, so we're just going to go YOLO and put the Pancakes down. And then we'll Sycamore, find a bunch of stuff. Okay. So we can attach here. We can Ultra Ball away the Silent Lab that we don't need. And probably one of the Fairy Energies. Be okay with that. And we can go find Lugia. And then we're going to go ahead and Geomancy here. We're going to get an energy on each of these things. Because eventually when we start attaching double colorless energies, they're just going to get knocked off anyway. So it's only so much we're going to be able to do here before this just kills us. Might be able to Lysander stall for a little bit. We do see a second energy gonna go onto that Scizor. We're going to see another N here. I'm guessing we know he at least didn't have the Spirit Link. Whether or not he had the Scizor, not sure if that would have mattered because it would have ended his turn. So we find 2 experience shares. So that's at least interesting. Not sure how relevant it is in the long run. I guess really we have to hope he misses the Spirit Link here. So we do see an Ultra Ball. Now he's paralleled himself, so he can't get a Shaman here to draw for extra cards. He does search out for the Mega Scizor, so it comes down to whether or not he's got the Link in his hand now. And instead he hard Megas, so that will cost him his turn. He does get the Mega Scizor into play, but we can Lysander around it here. And I think that is going to be the play, is we're going to go ahead and Verse Seeker here and use one of our 2 Seekers, grab a Lysander, and drag up another Scizor. And then we can attach another energy here. And I'm trying to think about where I want to put this. Do we want to go for the Deep Hurricane here? It's not exactly a bad idea, although we could eventually just get to that anyway. We're going to go ahead and throw experience shares on both of these things, and then we're going to Shaman here for some more stuff. Alright, so we find a Xerneas Break, which admittedly is pretty useless right now. So, yeah, I think we're just going to go ahead and we're going to Geomancy again. And we're going to get... Alright, we only got 1 energy to work with here, so... We're not going to grab one for Snorlax. We're going to put it on the Lugia. It gets us up to 5 energy, but there's no fairy energies left. So we've got 1 in the sinkhole that we discarded earlier, so that means we've got 1 in the prizes. And it also means that Xerneas Break won't be swinging anytime soon. We do see a Float Stone, so he's going to be able to retreat into Mega Scizor here, and then we see a Verse Seeker for a Sycamore on top of that. So everything just kind of flying into place now. And he's going to just wail on us here in a second. And we'll have the access, or the option, to either Deep Hurricane or Pulverizing Pancake on our turn. Of course, if we Pancake, we miss the knockout here. But we do have a pair of double colorless energies working our way here. So he does get another, unfortunately, he gets another Mega Scizor into play. We do see Garb, which admittedly don't really care about. Not too bothered by that. So he brings the Mega Scizor out, and that's going to knock out Xerneas, and we'll see if he decides to discard the Stadium here, which he would be wise to do, and does. Okay. So we can... Well, first of all, we're going to save this energy, and I think we'll throw it over here for now. Since it's going to take him 2 turns to knock this guy out anyway. So we can do that. And it looks like we can hit him for 100 damage, which isn't too bad. We will go ahead and throw a double colorless on this on the Snorlax here. Don't really see much of a reason to play a supporter at the moment. We'll Arrow Ball here instead. Get 90 damage on the table. And then we can drop a double colorless next turn to finish that knockout. So he Enhanced Hammers the Deuce off of the Snorlax. And drops a Shield Energy on the other Scizor. Alright, and then we see a Trainer's Mail now for an N, which of course if he plays will send us right out of that double colorless we're sitting on. That we're kind of needing here in order to make that happen. But he Iron Crushers without playing the N, so we're going to take 120. And since he just played that Stadium, he could also bring up the case of what would even be the point of discarding it here. And he does, but he does discard it. So again, he just burns it out of his hand, it seems like. It's no real use. So we're going to throw a double colorless on here. And then we could end him here, which isn't really a good idea, I don't think. I think we actually do just Sycamore. We throw a couple of Xerneas breaks in the process, but, you know, again, I'm just not really all that concerned about it right here, since there's not really a lot that we can do with them. So we find a Parallel, which is decent, I guess, although he would just knock it out of play. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else we might be able to do here. I think it will be better off after the Lugia gets knocked out. We can go ahead and put another Lugia down. And then we will Arrow Ball here for a knockout. Just enough through the shield energy and all that. So we find a Fairy Energy. Unfortunately, we don't find a double colorless, which would have been more ideal. So he's going to end us down to 4 out of this hand of 8 cards that we're sitting on. And we do find a double colorless now, so we will be able to bring Snorlax up. As Lugia gets knocked out, we move another energy over to our Snorlax-GX. And so we can get the attack with Snorlax here. We can get Pulverizing Pancake, which would do 200 damage if we were to launch that attack. And then we could always finish him off with Collapse. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and attach the double colorless. We're going to play this Trainer's Mail. We find a Float Stone, which I guess is okay. We can throw that on the Shaman. And he doesn't have a way to target that guy down, so we can go ahead and use it. And then we will end him down to 3. Maybe we can keep him out of an energy here or something. And then we will go ahead and use Pulverizing Pancake for 200 damage. And so we see the GX thing flip over. And we hit him for a bunch. And of course, if we stay asleep, we would have the potential to use Thunderous Snore as well. Something we whiffed on last time. So we do see another energy go onto that Scizor, but it does have a Float Stone on it. That's important to remember. So we're going to see Iron Crusher here, which is going to knock our double colorless off. And so do we wake up from our attack? We do not, so we're going to be looking for a Thunderous Snore here, it looks like. We have 3 double colorless in the in the discard pile. So if hopefully the last one is not in the prizes. That's really what we have to hope for. His Garbodor is not armed. And we do have a Shaman left. So we can try to make that into a thing here. As the Xerneas isn't really doing a whole lot for us. We do have Shaman left in the deck. But our double colorless is prized. Ugh. Gross. Alright. So that sucks. We're going to go ahead and throw an energy on Lugia here. Maybe we can hit the Olympia. Which we could Olympia out and then retreat back in and use Collapse. Nope. That's not going to be a thing. Alright. So we do find a Fairy Drop, I suppose. Could try to make that work. We could Lysander. Not sure how much help that's going to be. This is a pretty shitty spot to be in, all things considered. Okay. So 3 Fairy Energies in there. I don't think we're going to be able to Pancake again this game. Well, I mean, obviously we can't, but go ahead, I think, and Super Rod. And we can get some energy back. Oh, that's a really awkward spot to be in, because we could heal, but then we would have, it would still be just enough since we don't have the Olympia. And can't Ninja Boy, because that's not in here. Oh my god, this just sucks the big one. Alright, so it looks like we're just going to end up getting KO'd here. It's very unfortunate that we couldn't get the Thunderous Snore. And so rest in pancakes, Snorlax. You will be missed. Alright, so he does get another Scizor down, and we really don't want to see another Mega come out. That would be really bad. He does get a Spirit Link on it as well. So we're going to have to play an N here on our turn. We do see our Snorlax-GX go away, and so we're going to end him down to 1. We do have a Float Stone on this Shaman here. And we may want to try to unload some of these cards in our hand, although we find the energy just fine. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to Float Stone over here. And then we're going to Versus Seeker here for an N. So we're going to end him down all the way to 1 card in his hand. And we're going to go ahead and then knock him out with Lugia. So Arrow Ball is going to score us a KO here. We're going to find a couple of prize cards. And we do find the double colorless and the other fairy drop as well. And we got to hope that these Shamans on our bench don't end up costing us the game. Maybe should have Float Stone the Lugia instead. Be able to start Sky returning. So he brings up the Garb. And we'll see if he's got a Float Stone and a Lysander. Nope. Okay, so we do see another Mega comes into play here. So the Garbodor, of course, only yields a single prize card. And he hits the Versus Seeker. Oh my god, you're kidding me. Ugh. Talk about top decks. And of course, we are out of ends, it looks like. Yep, and we're out of Verse Seekers. So we can no longer drop his hand size down, so he's going to have a full arsenal now for the rest of the way. We see an Ultra Ball. And that's going to be... Okay, so he discards a Sycamore. A Giovanni, it looks like. Grabs a Shaman, so he's going to have a fresh hand. Since that Garb still does not have a Pokemon tool on it. So he's going to get set up here for a couple of cards, and you know he's digging for the Mega Turbo. So there is a Shield Energy. God, those things are getting frustrating. Okay. Now we would be able to heal 80 damage through the use of Olympia and Fairy Drop. So, let's see. Looks like we don't have enough stuff to be able to Ultra Ball just yet. So instead, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use Arrow Ball here for 60 damage. And how many Float Stones is there? Does he have any floats in his discard pile? He's got 1, it looks like. Okay, and then 1 attached to this Scizor over here. So we do see another one. We see another Sycamore, so he's just completely digging now. Gotta dig for that Float Stone, and he passes his turn. Okay, so if he has the Lysander, then we would just lose the game. And there's no way for us to get a Lysander, so at least we know we've got the number of cards in deck working to our advantage. So we're gonna go ahead and pass up on the attack here. Make him get that retreat. We do see he still has a Lysander left. He attaches an energy to his Garbodor here. Super Rods 3 metal energies back into the deck. And oh wow, this is tempting now. Do we want to try to switch into a Shaman here? Which I think might not be a bad idea. I think we will Olympia here. We will bring out a Shaman. And then we can attach a not a Float Stone, a double colorless and Sky Return. So we'll get the 30 damage. It doesn't knock him out, most importantly. And we do have 2 Fairy Drops ready. If we can get these 2 Shamans off our board, he is not able to Lysander the Regirock here, which is important. So we can attach the float stone this time up here, and we can retreat into another shaman and use the double colorless yet again. Get that thing out of there, and we can bring up the Lugia here. Claim a prize card. Alright, so we get the Delinquent, which isn't really doing much since he's got way too many cards in his hand, but it does get Garbodor out of the way, and it gets both Shamans off of our board to prevent a Lysander play, because like I said, Regirock is not Lysanderable. If he has an Escape Rope, we cry, but it seems like that's already in his discard pile. So we're going to see an Iron Crusher here for a whole bunch of damage. Alright, so we're going to Fairy Drop twice here. Okay. And then we can also Ultra Ball. And we can cast off both of these Shamans since we really don't need them. Alright, and that's what we're looking at here. And he forfeits. Oh, wow. Okay. And that was an instance where you could have looked at it and actually seen a Pancake play there had we shuffled Snorlax back into the deck. But regardless, we come out on top against Mega Scizor, and that is kryptonite as far as matchups go. And I'm not certain that we had that game won because he could have retreated into the basic Scizor there. We would have been able to hit him for some damage, but not quite enough. So, regardless, though, he forfeits the game. It's tough to say how that would have ended, but we come away with the W, and when it comes to looking at official results. So, you know what? We take those. And so that's going to be Pancakes, Xerneas, Lugia, Snorlax-GX. And so a special shout out to Squeaky from Team Fish Knuckles, Kevin Baxter, and all the guys who played that deck. Hopefully I will get to play against these guys again soon in the League Cups. And good luck to everyone participating in those events this coming weekend, and everyone participating in the Georgia Regional Championships as well. And until next time, that's what I got. Cheers.